manager on a one-year deal, and sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But given all the sort of directional parts that we're trying to pull together, it just made more sense for us to cut ties now.
Thank you.
Ben Frederickson.
Hey, Mo, did this conversation, this parting of ways, stem from conversation about an extension? And had you guys offered one to Shildt this offseason?
I had no discussions on an extension to this point. Candidly, as we were looking to the future, we were trying to just understand what we wanted that to look like. But as we looked into things further, had further discussions internally, we just decided that we were going to make this decision.
Were some of the differences can some of them be pointed to the offensive direction? And we saw kind of a pivot in the offensive approach this year. Is that tied to the way that looked and the way it needed to look moving forward?
Again, I don't want to get into specifics. I'm not finger pointing here. The decision we made has been made, and ultimately we have to stand by that because that's the decision we decided on. And so these are not easy. Mike Shildt was in the Cardinal organization a long time. On a personal level, I hired him back in 2003 on Christmas Eve. I think I made a job offer to him, and he entered as a scout, went on to switch over to player development, ultimately worked his way up through the minor leagues and became a major league manager. And it's an amazing accomplishment given his story. And so, this was not something that we came to quickly. It was not something that we just jumped onto, but I will say that where we are is what we felt was in the best interest of the organization.
Derek Gould.
Mo, maybe this is a question for both you and Bill, coming at it from different angles, but I'll ask you first. You guys have for years talked about how continuity is a strength, and in a lot of ways, Shildt personified that in the sense that he grew up in the organization like any player. I'm wondering if, since this is a rupture of philosophical differences, if you could square that circle for us in the sense that here's a guy who has been part of the organization for so long. How could there be such a parting of philosophical differences if that's a strength?
Well, I still think our continuity is a strength, but you still have internal issues that can happen, and people evolve, people change, ideas change, philosophies change, and ultimately it's Bill's responsibility, my responsibility to try to keep the organization going directionally where we'd like it to. And so again, these are not easy decisions. We didn't come to it quickly. I think we're proud of the fact that we've had that continuity. We're proud that we've had the ability to promote from within and have people from our system advance. And candidly, I hope we can continue to do that.
This is 2 consecutive managers that you've brought sort of from internal realms. Does that maybe encourage you to look outside in this next time? Would you might put an emphasis on looking from outside the organization?
I'm not really prepared to answer that at this point. I think we had to get the first step of this accomplished, which we've done, and now we will begin huddling and deciding what makes sense for us moving forward.
Randy Carricker.
Mo, in regards to the roster that you put together and gave Mike Shildt to manage this year, how did you feel about the way the group was managed?
I felt the team was managed well. Overall, I think the roster evolved. As you know, we had to make some mid-season changes because the original version of what we broke in spring was not working ideally. But ultimately, I think given the way we finished and how we played, this is not a reflection simply on wins and losses, right? It's not simply a question of were you happy with how the game was managed. It really was more at a higher level of where we saw the team going and where we wanted it to go.
And you, in your last answer, you talked about philosophies changing. Would you say that in regards to these differences, your philosophies have changed, or over the course of years of managing the Cardinals, that Mike's philosophies changed that caused this divergence?
Well, I'm not going to speak for him here, but I'll speak for myself. And yes, my view on the game and how you do things is always changing. I'd like to think of myself and the staff as someone that's, we're always looking to get better, get smarter, not just follow trends, but try to help create some if that's at all possible. But, ultimately, it's our responsibility to put a quality product out there, and how we go about it and the resources we use to do that is incumbent upon all of us.
Thank you.
Mark,
You're welcome.
Kilcoyne?
Hey, Mo, what is player input at all part of this decision? And then also, can you describe the nature of the conversation you and Mike had? Was he shocked?
Not going to get into who I spoke with or exactly the details of how we got to this decision. I will characterize my conversation with Mike Shildt as, yes, he was very shocked.
And Mo, people around town are people reading this correctly that it's a surprise move? Did you come to this decision in a short amount of time, or had this been building?
I would say the conclusions came rather quickly, but it was something that was brought to my attention over time.
Katie, did you have a follow-up? Katie Wu?
I do. Mo, when you came to this decision, how much did 2022, which has long been estimated as this team's biggest window of contention, factor in on this being next season being a must-win season?
Not at all. This again was not a decision solely based on like wins and losses and anything.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ben Frederickson?
Well, is Jeff Albert going to be back as the hitting coach? And I guess to ask bluntly, was the tension between him and Shildt at times part of the reason that led to this?
As of right now, Jeff Albert is under contract, so I would expect him to be back. And in terms of that being the sole reason for this decision, the answer is no.
Jeff Passan?
Hi, Mo. I just want to make sure and clarify this. This was entirely a baseball-related decision, correct? Or were there other factors aside from baseball that led to it?
Oh, no, this is a baseball decision.
Derek Gould?
Mo, it's unusual. I have a question for Mo and for Bill then. Mo, it's unusual for teams to make an announcement of this enormity on a day where there's also a National League playoff game. Does that speak to how rapidly things changed today?
I think that's a fair question or statement, yes. And did not want this to be something that would drag off into next week or when we would have had that 1 day window. So both Bill and I requested permission to do this, so we could do this today rather than push it out further.
Bill, I wanted to ask you what this says to the commitment you've made to the philosophy spearheaded by the front office at this point. I know you don't make these decisions lightly. I think you've told me before that you prefer not to fire people and that it goes to a link. I wonder what this says about the commitment you've made to the front office and the philosophy you see them steering the team.
You cut out a little bit there at the end, but I think what you're asking is, how does this relate to the philosophy of the front office? Now, I think, Mo said it well. This is based on, differences between Mo and his group and the manager, and it's, didn't have anything to do with this year, and you also referenced continuity before. I value continuity, but I value continuity if we're continuing to head in the right direction. So this is a decision that everybody bought into, and that's kind of the way it played out.
Bill, while the team is going through that historic winning streak, was this something that was on your mind? Was this a reckoning that you knew was on the horizon?
You asking me?
Yes. Yeah, I'm asking you, as this team is going through the winning streak, are you?
I mean, I wasn't actively thinking about the managerial situation at that point in time. I mean, obviously I was engaged in all the games. So, Mo and I have conversations, if not daily, often about the direction of the organization and so forth. And, when the season ended, we huddled and, this is how it came out.
I guess maybe a better way for me to ask you, and this will be my last question, is were you, and Mo, if you want to chime in on this, I understand, but during that winning streak, were you aware of a gap growing in the philosophical differences between the leadership of your team?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into, when and how and, when did it start and when did it end? I think Mo said it pretty well. This is, something that we came to and decision was made.
Ben Hockman, did you have a follow-up?
I did. I guess my question is, if in regards to the term philosophical, I mean, can you explain what I'm missing here? Where if you're the boss of somebody and you have a philosophy, why can't you just tell him to do that philosophy? I know that's a very basic thing, but can you respond to that, Mo?
Sure. I can tell you to jump out of your car right now, and you may choose not to. It's people can think on their own. People can make decisions on their own, and a lot of this is about creating autonomy. But there are certain things that we would like to see done, and ultimately, really touching on more of Derek's point of the continuity of thinking is it is evolving. It does change over time, but ultimately, we just felt we were at a place where we weren't going to have a meeting of the minds.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mish, Rick Hummel?
Mo, is there a certain type of manager you're looking for now?
Obviously, we feel like the person coming in is inheriting a very good club. So there's kind of two ways to look at this. It's maybe chasing someone with experience and success, or it might be someone that just has a lot of familiarity and understanding what we already have. So I think in terms of what we'll do or the directionally of how we'll do this, it's going to take us a little time to sort through, but I don't want us to have to drag our feet. I don't want this something to go into mid-November where we don't have this resolved. So we'll work quickly at this, and in terms of nailing that exact profile that you just asked for, I'd have to say that's still to be determined.
Without naming names, do you have a candidate or two on your current coaching staff that would be under consideration?
Yes, I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ben Frederickson?
Mr. DeWitt, were you expecting or hopeful that you guys would agree with an extension with Shildt this offseason? Was that a plan for you? And can you speak to, I guess, just the idea of this philosophical differences when we saw, a lot of things that Shildt kind of prioritized seem to be things that you guys valued, defense and, cleaning up some of the details that had gotten a little ragged, and how that sits with you.
I wasn't thinking actively about an extension at the end of the year. I mean, Mike had a contract that goes into, there was another year left on the contract. So you don't really think about those things or talk about them until after the season's over. And, the season is now over, and we got together and kind of went through kind of where we stood as an organization. And, that's sort of the way it played out.
And just your idea that the philosophical that that Mo's group, you said, and the manager couldn't get on the same page. It seemed like a lot of the things that, you guys value Cardinals baseball being about were things that the team had done well in recent seasons with cleaning up the defense, the base running, things of that nature. Did something jump out to you as being so different that it couldn't be solved?
In today's baseball world, it's the business has gotten more and more complicated. You can see the growth in baseball operations and the staffs, and so there's more to it really than an element or two on the field. So, and one thing you want to make sure is everybody's on the same page, and that's pretty critical, or you're going to kind of stumble along the way. So that was part of the discussion that we had.
Thanks.
Jeff Jones?
Mo, you've mentioned a couple of times sort of the strangeness of the timing of this, given what's going around the league today. Was there concern that if this move didn't happen quickly for you all, that you might miss out on potential candidates who might be candidates for other jobs as well?
No, really the thrust of this was more for Mike's benefit, to just cut the cord now and not have it drag out and then be left hanging later. And so it was more of the speed of this was more to just hopefully benefit him.
He several times during the season, especially when things were going badly in June, made comments to the effect of managing with what he had and doing the best he could with the players he had on the roster. Was there frustration throughout the season between perhaps the dugout and the front office based on the speed or maybe lack thereof from his perspective of outside additions? And did that become a part of this conversation?
No, it did not.
Randy Carricker, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, Mo, throughout the sport, several front offices have parted ways with managers because of a disagreement as to how to implement analytics. Obviously, you have an analytically inclined group in the front office. How much, if at all, did the implementation of analytics play a role into this?
Again, I really don't want to start carving out where this philosophical difference became, because I just don't think it's fair. Look, we want things to always work out. You don't ever want to have these types of press conferences. You like everything be rosy, but we just weren't in a spot where we thought we were positioning ourselves for ultimate success, not just for today, but long term. And so we made a very difficult decision, one that we did not come to lightly. And both Bill and I and others will tell you it's agonizing. It's not fun, but in the betterment of what we think for the organization, we had to do it.
And Bill, I want to go back to that comment about stability, because Whitey was here for 10 years. Torrey was here for 5. You hired Tony and he's here for 16. Matheny's here for 5. So you've had a guy for essentially 3 seasons, Bill. How did you react when you got this phone call that Mo wanted to make this move?
Well, first of all, I didn't get a phone call. I mean, Mo and I have constant communication. I was going to say throughout the season, but really year round on all kinds of baseball matters. And, I'm not going to comment on a point in time where this decision was actually made or what our thinking was. But, generally at the end of the year, we all sit down and talk about where we are, where we're headed, and, how we think we can do better. And, that's sort of baseball. You play it one season at a time, but then you look forward to the future. And so, we have those conversations, and so here we are.
Thanks, guys.
Jeff Passan?
Mo, I know you won't talk about the philosophical differences, but can you say what the Cardinals' philosophy is and what you would like it to be going forward?
Well, look, we're an organization that has a trust in creating a pipeline from our minor league system to our big leagues for both players and staff. We're a typical organization that tries to stay internal with what we're trying to do. We try to help individuals grow into these roles. And, for where we were in this point in time, we're not making this decision on a reaction of the season. This is a decision that as we start to look forward, what do we want to most look like, and what do we want, how do we want that to be run? And so rather than for us to sort of debate or talk about these details, again, we want the very best for Mike Shildt moving forward, whatever should happen with his career. But ultimately, the decisions that both Bill and myself and some others came to was what we want to do and where we want to go. We needed to go a different way.
I mean, some of those things that you're talking about there sound more like player development, which of course the big league manager doesn't handle. And when you talk about philosophical differences, like, you understand why we're curious about this, right? If you're citing that as the reason for firing him after a playoff season, after a 17-game winning streak, the details there do seem to make a bit of difference, do they not?
Again, I'm here to protect employees. I'm here to protect him. If he wants to discuss those with you, that's his choice.
Thank you.
Not mine.
Ryan Fagan, Sporting News.
Hey, Mo, I just wanted to clarify something. I thought I heard you say earlier, I think when Commissioner asked the question, is there a candidate or two that you have in mind? And if so, could we see this process wrap up quickly?
As I stated, there are some internal candidates that we do have confidence in. Could it move quickly? Yes. But I want to take a few days to sort of just take a step back, catch our breath, and then take a hard look at what that looks like. Thank you.
Ben Fredericton.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Martin, did you have any follow-up? Martin Kilcoyne?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Mo, was there a meeting between you and Mike where you addressed these philosophical differences? And was there a chance where he has to either get on board or get off board? Was there a discussion like that where you guys address these issues and you basically say whether he's on board or not?
No, it was more of a collection of information that ultimately got us to where we are. And so, no, it was not an open meeting.
Had you guys met since the season ended in person?
We had met last Friday as a staff. Yes.
Brian Kelly. Okay, Ryan, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, Mo, it's interesting that Mike has been with the organization as long as he has, and now you've got the philosophical differences. Was this something that was possible, say, a week or 5 days ago? Were you thinking about making this change at that time?
I would say, like in any decision making, there's a lot of organic reasons for things over time. But I would say over the last 5-6 days, it was something that came to a head.
Okay, I don't see any more hands up. Looks like we've covered everything here. Thank you again, Bill and Mo. Thank you, everyone. Apologize for the short notice with our technical difficulties getting word out, but thanks for taking time this afternoon, and have a good remainder of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.